on September 25th, 1971, following the devastating loss of over 70 football players, coaches, and administrators due to a plane crash. The Marshall football team comes back and brings hope to the Huntington area and the team and the school, honoring those they lost by winning just their second game back against Xavier, showing that Marshall may have been down, but they certainly were not out. We're going to dive into how Marshall came back today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your daily guide to sports history as you daily increase your sports knowledge. And today's trivia question is, what NCAA rule was changed following the 1971 Marshall season? Now, Marshall had been around for a long time. Their first football season was in 1895. In 1915, they actually gained notoriety running the tower play, which is a very unique play where one receiver lifts another one on his shoulders to complete a pass. It sounds like something out of a Globetrotters game. But though they've been around, they haven't always been the best team. Their overall winning percentage is above 50%, and they won a total of 629 games. And in 1992, they actually won the 1AA National Championship and did the same thing in 1996. And this was the pinnacle of the team, as the 1996 team included future NFL players in John Wade, Chris Hansen, Eric Kesser, Doug Champion, Pro Bowler Chad Pennington, and Hall of Famer, possible greatest receiver of all time, Randy Moss. But they've since up to the football bowl division and struggled at times, but have been adequate in their pursuit of greatness. In the 1960s and 70s, the team was a lot different. In 1969, Marshall hired Rick Tolley, coming in from Wake Forest. His first season was a struggle as they went 3-7. In the following year, they were struggling as he went 3-6. But he didn't get to finish that year. After a game against Eastern Carolina, the team took an airplane back to West Virginia. The plane would crash on the way home, and all 75 passengers would pass away, including Rick and 4 other coaches and 37 players, as well as administrators, family, friends, and the whole flight crew. It was a devastating moment for Marshall, and really the nation. Seeing how easy it is for a team to just be lost in a moment was tough. And it was the single worst air tragedy in NCAA sports history. And despite the thought of just disbanding the team and no longer having football at the university, but the team lost their athletic director and head coach. So the first thing they had to do was hire a new athletic director, and they hired Joe McClellan, who was actually a head football coach before taking over the AD role at Marshall, as he had struggled previously at San Diego State with a record of 3-10. And the first thing he had to do was figure out how to bring back this team. And he actually initially hired Georgia Tech assistant coach Dick Beswick to take over the role, but 2 days after, he actually returned back to Georgia Tech, and they actually named Will Red Dawson as the acting head coach. Now, if you've ever seen We Are Marshall, this was the coach that did not go onto the plane. And that part is true. He was one of the few members not on the plane, as he had a recruiting trip to go on to. And that's where he really helped, as he would go on to sign 21 prospects from 5 different states just this season alone. But he didn't want to coach the team. He just was filling in until they found a new replacement. And that replacement was Jack Lingiel, who started coaching as an assistant in 1979 at Akron University with Joe McClellan, the new AD at Marshall University. And he went on to coach at Hingelberg, Cornell, and Worcester, and would also coach baseball and lacrosse during his coaching tenures before coming to Marshall, where his former colleague was now the AD. And part of his agreement, he had to help recruit for baseball and basketball while he was at Marshall. But one thing they had going is they had fought for that season to be allowed to allow freshmen to play, which up until 1972, the NCAA did not allow freshmen to play varsity sports. So you had to at least be a sophomore to participate. The NCAA granted them the chance to allow freshmen to play in order to fulfill their team. And this gave them a huge advantage as no other team in the country could allow freshmen to play. So they had a unique recruiting pitch that no other team could offer. And that really did help them, as they would get players who turned down Notre Dame and West Virginia and other major colleges to come play, as they could play as freshmen. But the problem was, even though they could get more talented players, they still weren't as big as juniors and seniors in college. And it's especially hard on the offensive and defensive linemen, where you need big bodies to have success in college football. But they didn't just only have freshmen on the team. They actually were able to have 3 players on the previous varsity team come back due to the players missing the Eastern Carolina game due to injuries. And they also had the freshman group from the 1970 season there as well, as they weren't allowed to play, so they didn't go to the Eastern Carolina game. But they did feature a lot of walk-ons, former military men, 3 basketball players who used their 5th year of eligibility to play on the football team, and 50 players would end up trying out for the team, and 35 of them would be accepted as walk-ons. And Coach Jack would label them as the Young Thundering Herd, which to this day is still used from the alumni from this team, as many of them are still in contact and friends across the world. And they even received a letter from President Richard Nixon saying, "Friends across the land are rooting for you, but whatever this season brings, you have already won the greatest victory by putting a team on the field." And this was read the first day of practice. And the team was a difficult team to put together, as they only had 5 coaches, 2 on the defense, 2 on the offense, and head coach. And as you can imagine, having such a young team made up of sophomores and freshmen meant there was a lot of growing pains. And they changed the offense and the defense to make it more simplified. And they had their first game on September 18th against Morehead State, which is known as the Oxy 4 rivalry. And they struggled in this game, as Morehead State dominated through a majority of the game. But late in the game, the Herd was able to finally score their first touchdown, which prompted a standing ovation, even though they were at Morehead State. As even though they were competing, President Nixon was right, as everyone was rooting for them. The following game was their first home game since the loss of their teammates and coaches. Facing Xavier on their home field, it truly makes sense why this was the pivotal moment in the movie We Are Marshall, because it was one of those moments where it goes, it's like it was written for the movies. As Marshall was down 9-13 against Xavier on the final drive, and they had time for one more play, and they were just 13 yards away from the end zone. And their quarterback, Reggie Oliver, tossed a 13-yard touchdown pass to fullback Terry Gardner as time ran out, giving them the lead and the win, 15-13. As the crowd of 13,000 rushed the field, this really showed that Marshall was back, and truly one of the most resilient stories in football history. But sadly, they could not continue the success, as they would only win one more game that year, finishing 2-9. And they would struggle for the next couple of years under Coach Jack, as he would have a record of 9-33. And it wouldn't be till the late 80s, early 90s, when they would finally start to turn things around, winning those 2 AA championships and joining the FBS. Marshall truly showed you can go from the bottom of the barrel and still work your way back to the top. But it's not a quick fix, and it takes time. And Herd fans know this. And if you want to learn more about Marshall and the Thundering Herd, you can listen to the Thundercast, a great podcast hosted by KD and Russ, 2 huge Herd fans, there to give you all the information you want to know about the Thundering Herd through this season and beyond. We'll put a link to their show in the description so you can check them out. And if you enjoyed this episode of Daily Sports History, please share this with a friend or share it on your social media. Say, hey, check out Daily Sports History so we can continue to grow and give you more great sports history every day. And the answer to today's trivia question, what NCAA rule was changed following the 1971 Marshall season? The rule to allow freshmen the chance to play was changed in 1972 following the success in the previous year of Marshall allowing freshmen to play on their team. They now would allow all NCAA teams to allow freshmen to play.